What series started off strong but then later went completely downhill afterwards? My wife started watching it and saying she enjoyed the first couple episodes and asked if I wanted to watch with her. I said no, even if it's good, it's gonna start sucking after the second season. She asked how I knew, and said exactly that. Genji Kohan has great ideas that run out of steam after about 20 episodes. She gave up at the start of season 3. Pop is insane at just how low it sunk. The well of ideas was so dry they dug clean through to the other side of the planet and shot clean into space. DA rules start as a binding set of laws that fairies and kids must abide by before being gradually lessened to the point where they're basically irrelevant. Timmy starts as this unfortunate kid who gradually devolves into a sociopath. Either DA rules were lessened, or Timmy's deteriorating morals made him fearless against them. He once wished for everyone to stop aging so he could keep his fairies forever, then wished that they forgot he wished for it. He got away with that for 50 years. Poof was a dumb addition. The dog was an even worse addition to the point where they knew he sucked, so they wrote him out with no explanation after a single season. The new neighbor Timmy has to share his fairies with was such a massive reach. The Jimmy Timmy Power Hour specials served as the finale of Jimmy Neutron, as the production company was forced to close due to the financial failure of the Ant Bully, and would have worked better as a flop finale as well. Also, these specials show just how low Jimmy and Timmy can sink when they enable one another. Season 1 is my all-time favorite first season of any show, so incredibly fresh, including the backstories to make us care about each character. Seasons 2 and 3 were decent follow-ups, then yes, it just goes straight Disney characters with giving fan service to Frozen. I never finished the series but hope to someday. Those developers from Lost really know how to sell a show but have no idea what they are doing after it gets going. I've posted this before, but might as well repost it whenever someone brings up one of my favorite TV shows in posts like these. Season 1 and 2 of House of Cards is a masterpiece of storytelling. No one can convince me otherwise. Spoilers below. Beware. The story wraps up the main conflict established in the very first episode. Every obstacle is addressed and overcome, and every single character who has won is given a complete arc. Especially Doug, where he succumbs to his ever-foreshadowed and then-present addiction that moved from alcohol to a forbidden relationship with a woman that he refuses to share with anyone no matter what. Even Zoe's arc met a logical end. She starts off as an ambitious woman seeking success wherever she can find it and a place in the sun. However, when she later uncovers the rotting darkness within that light, she chooses to pursue the truth rather than her ambitious dreams. This choice, brought on by her growth, becomes her undoing. Character development that leads to her death. Brilliant. I feel really similarly about Orange is the New Black, also a Genji Kohan show, but at least Toyton had some awesome development for side characters, especially the women of color on the show. But why do both Nancy and Piper become so supremely unlikable? I am totally game to watch main characters take a fall from grace and have their need for power or character journey expose the worst in them. See Walter White, Don Draper, June Osborne. But with both Nancy and Piper it felt really off base. I stopped having a clear understanding of their character's motivation or why literally any other character in the show puts up with their shit, so the plot armor became really contrived, which happens in the other shows I mentioned too, but I'm kept invested enough in their story to forgive it or notice less. Even worse for Piper, since the show was based on an actual memoir by Piper Kerman, OF. Also, I don't think I can ever forgive how they showed aged-up Shane in the Weeds finale. Big yikes. I liked the show until the last season really. I liked it as it always asked the question of what are you willing to do to survive? Kind of like Saw on a society level, if you know the bunker year you know. Like GRRM says, the only story worth writing about is the human heart in conflict with itself. But the end were just spoiler aliens. God judging Raven and humans got to join the aliens. God in space heaven. All while the Dark Commander came back, completely took the harsh and sinister choices tones from the series. I thought it worked well with Bones and Booth maintaining the sexual tension, but then they put them together after already putting Hodgins and Angela together. Then they almost forced themselves to find love interests for Cam and Sweets. It was too much personal drama nonsense and not enough actual drama. I still watched them all, though. Yeah, it was so good at the beginning. I felt connected to the characters. The romance angle was okay. The law angle was, of course, fiction, but they made an effort to make it somewhat realistic. Kinda. Then it just turned into a lame soap opera, with everyone sleeping with everyone, gratuitous references to analingus to be edgy, and they decided to turn Frank, who was a cold-blooded killer who had no issues brutally murdering an innocent pregnant woman and lots of other people, into like a freaking romance novel caricature, ripping off his shirt with his six-pack abs and wooing his woman, like come on. And the law angle just went straight out the window. All of a sudden the characters are solving what would be decades-long battles ending in the US Supreme Court in like 5 minutes in a local court. So lame. Basically they took a decent idea and turned it into a Days of Our Lives level soap opera. I really think it's going to go down as one of the biggest nosedives in entertainment franchise history. God was huge during its heyday. We kind of forget now because of how quickly we all stopped caring about it, but it was a true cultural juggernaut. God merch was everywhere. It dominated pop culture. It was the zeitgeist. Season finales were like the Super Bowl. Those last 2 seasons, and honestly, 5 and 6 were slipping a bit as well, just destroyed the franchise and took it out of our cultural consciousness overnight. Literally nobody talks about it now except to say man that show was good until it got ruined. I find it amazing that GOT was a cultural powerhouse. Everyone talked about it. Then starting at the episode where they forgot to remove the lens cap in the final season, many people stopped caring. They didn't criticize the show. They didn't carp about it. The fans just gave up on it. Now it is forgotten, best not talked about. It is amazing how the showrunners utterly killed this franchise by ignoring everything about Westeros, from plot armor of main characters, to teleporting traveling times, to disregarding all mythology of the land. What was the meaning of all the circles of body parts made by the WW? Yes, actually, spoilers, the season 1 was fantastic. They used the premise and the cyberpunk setting. I loved it. Wed immortality made his sister crazy, not cray-cray, but all of her morals became non-existent to the point she pretended to her brother's love interest. It had wonderful world building, but it was all too fast. Then, they just didn't have much to explore in season 2, with some exceptions, of course, especially that little girl who was in a little boy's body or vice versa. The S2 plot felt generic and all over the place when you compare it to S1. I'd argue that almost every show falls off after 2-3 seasons to some degree. It's often very clear that the concept for the show were way stronger at the start, courtesy of a good and well thought out idea from the creator. The showrunners then tried to prolong the show because the TV station or streaming service ordered more seasons because of the first season's success, even though the show was never intended for more seasons. That's why I love miniseries at the moment. 6-8 episodes and then it's over, no matter the success. There are of course shows that stay good all the way, like Breaking Bad. It was such a cool idea, detective series with a supernatural twist. Then in season 3 they turned the zombie aspect up to the 11 and they basically erased the main character. She started off with getting some new skills and flashbacks and then she basically became the person she ate. It's so annoying. I watched the 3rd season, but I had less and less fun with each episode, and then they went full on zombie apocalypse show in season 4, which is so fucking overused and boring. It really feels like they had some control group gather in the corporate building, asked 10 people what they like about the show and the answers they got were zombies and funny character change skits, so they basically went overboard with these 2 aspects, killing everything else. It's truly a shame because it was such an interesting idea for a series that could be continued over multiple seasons, but they just went the road of escalating everything and it ruined it. Not every fucking series has to be about saving the world, for fuck's sake. You're a mystery detective show, stay in your fucking lane. A minor example with Babylon 5. The show is great and is one of the first sci-fi shows to have consistent story arcs throughout thanks to JMS's control and foresight, but the studio dragged its heels on greenlighting the last season, so JMS quickly wrapped up the major plot points thinking he wasn't going to get another season, but then it was approved and he had to come up with a new plot line for it. It was a lot weaker than the rest. I'll push back a little on this one. I stopped watching around season 14 and essentially had the opinion of only watch the first 7 seasons, 10 if you're bored for a long time. But during COVID, I figured I'd pick it up and see what I'd been trashing for years. It gets really bad from season 12 to about 19. That's where everyone jumps off, and for good reason. But starting in 2021, it regains a measure of cleverness and seems to embrace the "we've done everything, so what now" idea. The gag frequency goes back up, and a lot of them are actually funny again. The days of meaningful, impactful stories like Mr. Bergstrom are long gone, but at least through season 27, it's back to something I enjoy watching. I can't be the first person to say, notice this, but the season that everyone seems to agree the quality dropped significantly, 10, overlapped exactly with the first season of Family Guy. I wouldn't be surprised if Fox leaned on The Simpsons writers to skew more toward the chaotic style of Family Guy, especially after the success of the first couple seasons. My personal theory is that's a significant reason for the quality dip in the teens, but I have nothing concrete to back it up. Prison Break. The first 2 seasons were some of the most amazing TV I've ever seen. Should have ended right there, but they got greedy and tried to stretch it out. Season 3 was just a repeat of season 1 and season 4 was an incoherent mess. The X-Files. The movie should have been the climax of the series. The season after the movie should have been the last where they wrapped up all the storylines. Instead they got greedy, stretched the shit out. Mulder left. The show got whacker and ended with a whimper. Fringe. First 4 seasons were amazing. The final season shat the bed and completely ignored and swept aside all the awesome mythology that had been created in the previous 4 seasons. Nip/tuck. The show jumped the shark when they moved to LA. The storylines got increasingly less and less realistic and the show just got repetitive. True Blood. The first season was really the only great season, but Jesus. Talk about a show that overstayed its welcome and got increasingly more outlandish as it went on. The Man in the High Castle. The first 2 seasons were amazing. But you can tell that because of the show's success they wanted to stretch it out. Seasons 3 and 4 are uber whack. Devs. The whole premise of this mini-series was already wacky. And then they stretched this out onto way more episodes than they should have, becoming increasingly more pretentious. Marianne. Great mini-series that could have been told in half the chapters. The Outsider. Same as above. 4 chapters would have been enough. A lot of filler. I'm 100% convinced that the Duffer Brothers only planned for Stranger Things to be a miniseries and had absolutely no plot developed beyond that. The second season missed so much of the charm of the first season and has that one awful episode, and the third season rebounds well enough, but when you go back and rewatch that first season you remember what a masterpiece it was. It's a pretty steep drop-off after that, even if the second and third seasons were pretty decent. I think it's sort of the nature of the show. Seasons 1 and 2 reveled in irreverence, and their appeal was just how uncaring Rick was and how funnily mean the cosmos could be, but you can only keep that going so long before the series starts to stagnate. You need to give characters something to grow towards. I feel like the show is still trying to find its footing. I thought some of the more dramatic character-focused episodes weren't really that powerful. The Fruity Land episode, Pickle Rick, for example. But the show had to give their characters more depth and growth to stay good. It's either that or embrace the Simpsons model of flattening your characters and just selling a shitton of merch. Someone in another post commented something along the lines of seasons 1 and 2 were light-hearted, vulgar, sci-fi comedy. Then the show started to take itself too seriously and try become this deep, brooding thing that doesn't work. Personally, I think the writers bought into the I am very smart bullshit of the vocal fans and tried to cater to them. Bleach. It should have ended after they defeated Aizen. Instead, Kubo decided to recycle the story and now they're attacking Hugo to rescue another girl, and Ichigo got another power-up. And after that arc, Ichigo got another power-up in the next arc, and another in the next arc. It got so messy towards the end. Ichigo is now half human, half Shichigami, half demon, half Quincy, and still nobody get any idea how the fuck he defeated the last boss. It's a miracle that they're about to bring back Bleach. Hope this time Kubo got more time to do some serious writing. Thomas the Tank Engine. It started out as a show that anyone could enjoy, then the failure of the live-action movie with Alec Baldwin, which was made after the creator's death because he never would have approved of it, BTW, caused the show to be bought by a different company, which then dumbed it down for toddlers, turned it CGI, dumbed it even more, sold it to a different company which made the show briefly good. Then they made Thomas Go Around the World, and when that, unsurprisingly, failed, they decided the original wasn't popular and rebooted it. Don't look up the reboot. I stopped watching when they brought Fish Moody back. Like, I get they wanted Anak for their new show, but she should have been kept to just being around until enough actual villains are introduced and established. And even then Falcone and some of the other established crime families from the comics would have done the same narrative job. She wasn't interesting either. Her whole character just felt like filler. The Big Bang Theory started as a show about nerds for nerds, quickly evolved to snatch the larger demographic of people that laugh at nerds. Once they wrote out Raj's inability to talk to women, he became a token minority. Sheldon went from being the socially anxious awkward guy to just being an asshole. When they started pairing off characters, Sheldon's counterpart was far better designed for early season Sheldon than the asshole they turned him into. Leonard's character never evolved beyond being a doormat. Wolowitz is just a walking stereotype. The best character, and actor, on the show was Wolowitz's mother. Naruto had a great start with really cool characters, other than Sakura, and interesting world building. The story originally had such a cynical but realistic worldview which made sense for ninjas, especially young ones that were essentially child soldiers. The fights were much smaller scale than your typical shonen like Dragon Ball, Bleach, or even One Piece, where they were a battle of tactics and on-the-fly wit. Sadly, after the On the Akatsuki arc, the series went completely overboard with over-destructive battles of single Shina by being able to blow apart mountains, and it just made all the clans way more lopsided with power scaling. Like in the beginning of the story, the Byakugan and the Sharingan were practically equal abilities, but after Sasuke got the Susanoo, the competition was over. Not to mention the complete hypocrisy of the themes of the story and the numerous retcons. I still love it, and it really could have been way worse, but I'm still felt a bit unsatisfied with some characters and forgotten plotlines. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. They are rather good at creating tropes and then beating them to death. I watch it now for comedy and when I need an excuse to absolutely tear something apart. Oh, look, a loved one dies and becomes a zombie and they're crying as the beloved zombie shambles after them. Oh, they're crying harder now they have to kill their zombie person. Oh, look, the bad guy is out in the open with hundreds of guns pointed at him, but he's allowed to monologue and then escapes thousands of angry rounds because after all this time and after fighting all these bad guys, Rick and the gang still can't aim for shit. Oh, look, it's a big, scary zombie. We should all scream in fright and run away. Even though 2 scenes ago someone killed one with one blow to its Susie head with a potato masher. Oh, look, someone backstabbed. And now the backstabber is back with their original group. And look, they're backstabbing again. Don't these people ever learn to just kill backstabbers the first time? The Office is such a huge offender. Regardless of one's feelings on Michael Scott, the show doesn't improve in his absence. Pam and Jim's relationship is drawn out way too long. They finally get married in a great episode. Then they have to throw wrenches into their relationship. Jim becoming an ass and not telling Pam anything. Pam almost getting with a now visible sound guy from the camera crew to keep some focus on them. The rotating managers were great for the novelty of guest stars. Then Robert California overstays his welcome. This is before factoring in that the additional hires from Sabre add nothing to the show. Clark Duke, Catherine Tate, and Jake Lacy don't do anything of value other than occupy space. The biggest sin of all is probably what they did to Andy. He starts out as this cocky and selfish jerk, then gets humbled a bit only for them revert him back to a jerk but with added incompetence. They completely destroy his character because they needed to have some kind of dumb manager without Michael.